Girls Night In.
Hello, Sunflower.
Hi, how are you?
I kind of feel like we should sing our way into this one.
Did you ever know that you're my
hero? Listen, people, that was not planned. Good girl. She picked right up on it.
Of course.
Oh, my love. What are we doing today?
Well, as I sit here with my fall candle burning, we're doing our third movie in our quote-unquote summer hit series. Really, is anyone surprised that we did not end up cranking out what we wanted to crank out?
Listen, people. This has been, I'm telling you, every time that we talk, we're like, we're going to be better. We're going to make it. And then life happens. And as you people know, life can throw you some curveballs, not the least of which, and I think we may have talked about this a little bit, is when my brother and his wife and my husband and I went to Canada over the summer, we ended up with COVID, all four of us.
Yep. This was the summer of COVID and teeth issues. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah. Multiple family members needing root canals. I don't know what is happening, but.
And I promise you, I brush. I'm not as good at flossing as I should be, but still. It was, and never mind the fact that it was time consuming, it was also very expensive.
And painful.
And so anyway, we're sorry, but we know that you guys who are still listening to us get it. I don't know what I was thinking, well, we can get on the ball right before the start of a brand new school year.
It's literally just like the thing where it's like, this week is crazy, but next week will be fine. And then you just say that every week until you die. Like, we just keep thinking like, okay, well, like when back in the fall, we were like, okay, like I'm moving to Florida, so that's going to be crazy. But like once we're settled, it'll be good. Or I remember when I was like, I finally graduated from grad school and I was like, now I can really focus on the podcast. And like, nope.
But anywho, my loves, we are here to discuss beaches. And Elena, I have got some stuff to tell you, and you're going to be like, say what now?
This is a big one. We've been like holding off on this because it is like steel magnolias, or I don't know, what else would you compare it to?
Aunt Lisa was like, are you guys going to do terms of endearment?
Oh my God. I don't know. I don't think I could do that.
That was my exact reaction. I was like, I don't think we could.
We still want this podcast to be fun. Like, I can't, man. I cannot traumatize myself that much.
And you know what, Boo? We have not even talked about what we're doing next.
What are we doing next?
Well, I don't know. You know, we had tossed around a whole lot of ideas about the summer hit series, and I think we had said, you know, maybe Devil Wears Prada or Princess Diaries. But now the school year has started, and we said
I kind of feel like those are good, like early fall ones, though. So we could still do those.
Yeah, we could totally still do those. I was thinking maybe, I know it's been overdone, but Clueless or you know, something schooly like that.
I did just show Greg Clueless for the first time a few weeks ago. He loved it.
And you and I talked about in the fall we were going to do Mona Lisa Smile.
I feel like we could save that for like October, November. It's a little more like almost wintry.
Yeah, that's true.
I would love to do like more of a serious one with Mona Lisa Smile.
By the way, my hair, even though you people can't see it, Elena, I decided to see what my haircut would look like if I let it air dry. And I think the consensus is going to end up being a no.
I like it.
Do you really?
Yeah, you're so hard on yourself.
I know I am. You know, women are in general. We really shouldn't be. All right. Beaches, 1988. Luann, did you know? I did not know. This is a Gary Marshall movie.
I think when Greg and I watched it, I saw his name in the credits and I was like, oh, Gary Marshall? I didn't know.
So didn't know that.
But not surprised. Like, I'm like, oh, that tracks for sure.
Yeah, it does track. So before I get into statistics, because I got some stuff to tell you, my friend.
Ooh, okay.
Can you give us the synopsis?
Yes, I'm going to try. I feel like I haven't been on my synopsis game recently. I'm going to try to be a little bit better. But we start in the beginning of the movie. Well, it's a little bit of like flash forward, flashback, flash forward, flashback. So we start and we know that Bette Midler's character, Cece, some emergencies happened. This is the future or present day, and she has to go be with the person that this emergency is happening to. And then we jump back and we start at the beginning of the story, and it's how Bette Midler and who's the actress?
Barbara
Hershey.
Hershey. Mm-hmm.
How they met as little girls. So their characters' names are Cece, that's Bette Midler's character, and Hillary is Barbara Hershey. And they met when they were little girls in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I'm just going to call them by their character names. Hillary finds Cece under the boardwalk smoking a cigarette in a little showgirl costume. Cece is local to the area, whereas Hillary is visiting with her family. Hillary is very put together. She clearly comes from bougie. She clearly comes from a wealthy family. And then, of course, Bette Midler's character, Cece, is smoking a cigarette under the boardwalk. So, like, she's coming from a little bit of a trashier side of town. But Hillary's lost. She can't find her hotel. And so Cece's like, I'll show you the way back. Stop crying. Don't be a baby. And she's like, but before we go, I have to go to this audition. Like, come with me, and then I'll take you to your hotel. She's auditioning for some, like, children's television show or something. And so Hillary goes and sees her act, and it's also the little girl from Blossom that's playing her. And she does
I cannot
such a good
pronounce
job.
her name. It's Mayim Balik.
She's from Big Bang Theory, too.
Yes.
But anywho, she does a great job. She sings that song she sings, too. When I was a little girl, I used that for an audition song.
Did you really?
Give a little, take a little. Yeah, I sang that for one of my auditions for Encore one year.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, it was so like...
Was that for Guys and Dolls, honey?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
One year, this is like how extra I am. The first year I did Don't Rain on My Parade, which is like, girl, calm down. And then I think the second year I did The Story of Love. But anyways, love that song. The two become best friends. They end up becoming pen pals, writing to each other over the years as they're growing up. They obviously live such different lives. Cece wants to be on Broadway. She's always trying to be in the next big act. And then Hillary is, like, her parents are grooming her to, like, go to an Ivy and, like, marry a rich man. And so I don't remember how she ends up at her doorstep. I don't remember what happens. I guess she, like, leaves school or...
Well, she gets her law degree, and
Okay.
her parents want her to, like, work for a bougie law firm, and she wants to work for the people. Mm-hmm. And so the family disapproves, so she's like, I'm headed to New York.
Yes, so she shows up at Cece's doorstep. They end up becoming roommates and living in this shitty little apartment together, and it's so adorable. I love, like, their Christmas where they're, like, freezing, and they have their beds are, like, up against this wall that has, like, a big, like, I guess where it would be, like, a window. Like, it has a big cutout, so they can kind of, like, peek their heads to each other's little bedroom areas. So they're, like, at Christmas, they're, like, singing carols next to each other, and, like, it's just so... But, like, Cece's more edgy, and Hillary, of course, is, like, the sweet one. And then Cece starts to get more, like, of a rise in her fame, and there's this man who's a producer that's kind of, like, helping her along in her career, but she's, like, clearly in love with him. But then he sees Hillary and Cece, too. Like, it's Bette Midler, so, like, she's a very unique, like, has a really unique face, unique look to her, whereas, like, Barbara Hershey is, like, classically, like, timelessly beautiful. And so, of course, like, the director guy, like, falls in love with Hillary. And so that's where, like, we start to see a rift in the friendship and, like, conflict where Bette Midler's in love with this man, but it's kind of like a love triangle. And so they have a couple falling outs throughout their friendship, but they always come back to each other. And I don't know, should I just leave it at that? Or should I mean, has everyone seen this movie?
Okay, well, let's say this. If you have not yet seen Beaches, do yourself a big favor and grab a box of tissues.
Some Haagen-Dazs, maybe.
Yeah, you're going to need something. you're going to need something. And hunker down. It is just over 2 hours. It is a roller coaster ride of emotion. And then come back to us.
Greg was like, maybe I said this and Greg agreed, but one of us was like, it's almost like Forrest Gump. Like, not really, but the way of, like, the journey of it and, like, all the different, like, points of life and, like, how their styles change and their lives change. Like, it reminds me a little bit of Forrest Gump of, like, the different, and almost feels like a mini series with, like, how different each time period is.
How many decades? And both ladies were in their early 40s when they filmed this. And at one point, at the beginning of their adult friendship, they're playing 20-year-olds.
I never would have guessed. I would have guessed they were like 30 or 35.
Nope,
I didn't know they were
both in
40.
their 40s. And Barbara Hershey famously got lip injections for this role.
I was thinking it looked like she had lip filler.
Yep.
It looked good on her, but I was like, that's filler.
So now, Elena, pick up from where you left off. They're in this love triangle with John, who is the director, producer of these off Broadway plays that Cece has now found stardom in. And after the first show, Oopsie Daisies, Hillary spends the night with John.
Right.
And that causes their first big fight. It eventually works itself out. You know, Bette takes the high road and she's like, well, it makes sense. But then
Hillary's dad gets sick.
Exactly.
Like,
take it up from there. Yeah.
I was trying to remember how she ends up leaving again, but her dad gets sick, so she has to go take care of him in California.
I think so. And her mom had already passed away when she was a little girl.
Yes. And so she nurses her dad and up until the point where he passes away. And then now all of a sudden it's like she has this estate that's now hers. And I think she ends up with her dad's lawyer. So she ends up and probably in a moment of grief was like, I want security, and married this man, very basic business yuppie guy. And so that's all of a sudden, like, that's her life now. And she's just like a housewife. And that's kind of a thing too that is brought up as like an insecurity for her, is that she had so much passion and talent and had this degree in law, and she was in New York, like, working for the people, like Mom said, and then all of a sudden her life flipped on a dime, and all that independence and passion that she had is gone, and she's back living the life her parents had originally set up for her. And so her and her new husband decide to go visit Cece. Cece ends up marrying John, the director. But it's like she's always going to feel like second best to Hillary. So that's another point of contention. But so the couples end up like doing a little visit where they're visiting them in New York. Cece's on a Broadway show now, but it's kind of like raunchy. It's kind of beneath her a little bit. But like she doesn't care because she's a little too caught up in like the fame and the money of it. They have a super nice apartment now. She's like pretty ego. She already had a little bit of an ego. But now that she kind of has like the fame behind it, it's like even more nauseating. So, you know, in this big ass apartment they have, it's all like pictures of her, and like, you know, it's you're like, okay. So just as much as you're disappointed in Hillary for kind of giving up her dreams, you're disappointed in Cece for being obnoxious about getting her dreams, quote unquote. Is she really happy? No, it doesn't seem like she's really happy. So they end up visiting, and then her and Hillary end up in a fight. Because Hillary, I think what triggers it is Hillary's like, I'm so excited to have a baby. And Cece's like, yeah, me too. And Hillary's like, really? Like, you are going to be, I don't see you as like the mothering type, which is like a really mean thing to say.
Yeah, it is.
But I get, like, there was contention. There was hostility building. And so then they end up in this blowout fight, which makes me cry how mean they are to each other. Like, they say horrible
hateful things.
The worst things, like, I think Hillary ends up being like, oh, have fun with my sloppy seconds, or something to that effect. And Cece's like, well, have fun, like, being exactly who your parents wanted you to be and giving up all your dreams. And, you know, and so they end up not talking for a good period of time.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second.
Go
if
for
that's
it.
Okay.
No, please help me out, because it's a long movie.
It is a long movie. That's one of my favorite scenes is when, after they have this big blowout fight, Hillary and her husband are on the plane going back to California, and she's just acting calm as a cucumber. And she gets up and goes into, why am I going to start crying? She gets up and goes into the bathroom and just loses it. Mm-hmm. And actually, we'll take a little camp right here for just a second, because it also is one of my very favorite scenes between Bette Midler and Laney Kira, who plays her mom, which is interesting because I love her too. She's only 5 years older than Bette Midler, but she plays her mom in this movie.
I was gonna say, she doesn't look like old enough to be her mom.
No. And you know, in case you're not sure who we're talking about, she was also the mom in
My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yes. And so Hillary's in the bathroom crying on the plane, and then they fast forward to Bette flies down to Miami to see her mother, to complain to her, well, supposedly to visit her, but really, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because she also ends up divorcing John.
Yeah.
Her and John are like, we clearly are not in love. Like,
thank you. And actually, something that he says when they're having their breakup, he said, you know, where you're going, I don't want to go where you're going. And I love you, and I'm always going to love you, but I want to let go of us before us gets bad.
Yeah. Because he always wanted to stay more of that, like, off-Broadway indie kind of director, and she was, like, going mainstream. And there's obviously other issues, too, but it was, like, creatively and romantically and emotionally, they were just going in completely different directions.
Yeah, and so she goes to see her mom, and she's like defeated. She's lost her husband. She's lost her best friend. And Laney, her mom, says one of my favorite phrases, because Bette Midler says, well, he stopped paying attention to me. And Laney says, you always wanted too much attention. You wear me out. You wear me out. That's why I moved down here. I didn't move down here for the beach and the sand and the sun. I moved down here to get away from you. And Bette Midler's like, crush, you know, and she's like, honey, you got to stop leaving people for not giving you enough attention, because eventually you're going to have to leave everyone. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
she's insatiable.
Yep. She's got to have, you know, she's like my mom would say about me, sucks up all the air in the room. She just takes it all.
That is not you, because you, while you, quote unquote, you may be sucking up the air in the room, it's because you're asking other people questions about themselves. Oh. You are never talking about your own self. So don't think that you're CC or that those lines apply to you, because that's not you.
Well, I'm not going to lie. There's a part of me that wants to be CC, man. I do love her.
I do love her.
I love her. But that relationship between her and her mom, I think, is one of the high points for me in this movie. So keep going.
So I agree. And I love that you brought up that airplane scene, because I feel like that also shows us that Hillary and her husband are not partners, and they don't have the real deal, because the fact that she couldn't cry to him about it or tell him about it, she had to go to the airplane bathroom and cry by herself and wanted to act fine in front of him. They didn't have a connection. They didn't have that
I'd never
soul
thought
tie.
of that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, you should be able to, like, if I'm ever in a fight with someone, like Greg, outside of you, Greg is the first person I go to cry to about it and get advice and vent about it. And the fact that she wasn't comfortable doing that with him was one of many signs that it wasn't meant to be.
You know what? Let's go back. I think this is a really good midway point. So before you move on, let's go back to those earlier scenes.
Yeah, let's revisit. We could do synopsis and analyze together, because this movie is so long and there's so many eras.
And because it jumps around, like you were saying, it's hard to keep track of. Let's talk. First, before we move on, though, I want to know when you watched this for the first time.
Okay, well, it had to be at least middle school if I sang that song for an audition when I was 13, because I remember I picked it because of that movie. So maybe I had just watched it and I loved it, and so that's why I wanted to do it. So maybe we'll just say like 12 or 13.
But you don't specifically remember watching it for the first time?
I do and I don't. Like, I remember experiencing it for the first time, but I don't remember how old I was. I don't remember, like, I know we were probably at our house.
Okay, so I saw
remember it?
I do. I
Okay.
saw it in the movie theater at Virginia Tech. My college roommate Lois and I went. May have been our friends Robin and Liz came with us. But I remember hyperventilating crying.
Yeah.
And, like that real, but yeah, it was massively impressed upon me. Like it made a huge impression on me. And I have the very rare blessing of having a lifelong best friend that I can see mirrored in this. Hopefully, not to the end that this movie comes to, but that person where you're like, that isn't family but is, and you would do absolutely anything for. Mm-hmm. And, thankfully, Aunt Lisa and I can only think of like maybe 2 arguments that we've had in 37 years, and they were nowhere near the level of what we see in Beaches. But again, it resonates with me. Like you said, when you're like, it makes you cry when they fight like that. I'm like, no. Like almost you can't look at it. It's like, no, I don't even want to imagine what that would be like. Mm-hmm. But not so much from the little girl perspective of the start of this movie. I love those scenes.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, like, I have a childhood friend that I've had since we were born, and the little girl stuff gets me. Oh, I'm not gonna cry, especially like this summer with the Barbie movie and everything, and like the quote "We were girls together" has been like huge this summer, and just like like girlhood and like that friend who knows you. It's just like Anne and Diana from Anne of Green Gables,
Yes.
like just that person who you played with as a little girl, where you dreamed about your future together, and then growing up with that person is just so priceless and so valuable. Like, you can't, it's like magic,
That is so cool, Lou. I didn't even think about that from the perspective of having all those earliest of memories. Mm-hmm. And I mean, those pictures are treasures, I mean, that's so amazing. I think the casting is insanely good.
Yeah, I do too.
The little girls that are supposed to be them are dead on, you know. And like we said, the audition scene right after Hillary and Cece meet, Cece has to go in for an audition. I thought that was brilliant, brilliantly written
To set it up.
And it just screams Gary Marshall.
Yeah.
That whole scene just screams Gary Marshall. I find that there's an incredible amount of quick-witted humor, especially in the years where they're living together in the apartment in New York. Mm-hmm. I think Bette Midler is
almost like Gilmore Girls-esque, the quick wit.
Quick wit, fast-paced, and her delivery is dead on. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite scenes is right after Hillary gets there, because Hillary finds Cece singing in a jazz cafe, and Cece doesn't even recognize her. And then when they go back to the apartment, Hillary starts crying, and Cece thinks it's because this is her apartment's such a dump. Mm-hmm. But really, Hillary's like, I can't believe I'm finally here. And as she's losing it, Cece's like hiding behind the refrigerator and everything. It's just those little things, that nuances of their acting performance and the direction and everything, I think are what really make this movie. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else in that first set of stuff that you said that really stands out to you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, so much. I just love Bette Midler's voice. She is so talented. She eats up every song she sings in this movie, even when she's doing the little bunny sing-o-gram. I'm like, you better eat it up, Bette. Come on. Like, she is such a talent, and I just wish I could see her in more things. Obviously, she's been in some really like hit cult classic movies that people love. I feel like almost every movie she's in, people are obsessed with. But I'm just like, I want more. I need more. I love her.
She, the divine Miss M, this soundtrack, I owned it. Do you remember at all listening to it on cassette tape in my car or anything?
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, I've always known Wind Beneath My Wings, and yeah, like I have like vague memories of listening to it and like looking at the cassette.
Baby Mine makes me cry.
Oh, I know. I love that song.
Yeah, so as we move forward, both of their marriages dissolve and Hillary shows up again and they have not made up. So what happens, Lou?
Well, so before she shows up, we do see like Hillary and her husband go on this little like getaway, and there's this like love scene by the fire, and you're like, okay, like maybe they're good. And then there's one morning, I guess she's supposed to be away or something, and she shows up at their home and he's at the breakfast table with another woman. And this line like kills me is she's just staring at them and she's like, that's my robe. Like the girl is just wearing her robe. She's like, that's so disgusting, first of all, to even like obviously be with someone else's husband, but then also like you're going to wear his wife's like clothes around. Like, yeah.
What kills me in that scene is that he puts his hand on the other lady's hand. Like, don't move. I'm going to protect you.
Like, that's the priority is her. And it's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Like, and what are you doing?
She looks super different from Hillary, too. She's, like, blonde and, like, totally different coloring. And it's like, cool.
Okay.
So then she shows up this is like, they have not talked since like the blowout fight, and Cece had been writing her letters and Hillary kept sending them back, which makes me so sad. But Hillary shows up at another jazz club that Cece's at, and Cece's like, well, you have a lot of nerve coming here, and you know, they have it out, and then Hillary's like, oh, I think they end up like kind of coming to like I'm sorry, and then Cece's like, well, let me get you a drink. And Hillary's like, oh, I can't. I'm pregnant. And
I love that statement. She goes, oh, I just thought you were fat.
I just thought you got fat.
I just thought you got fat. And she's like, I'm 3 months pregnant. And she's clearly further along than that.
Yeah, she looks like 6 months pregnant.
Yeah, she does.
But it's sweet because the pregnancy brings them back together, obviously. And Cece's like, we're having a baby. And
Cece's career is in the toilet.
Yes. Yeah. She's lost the Broadway show. Like, I think, oh, yeah, she, like, tried to do a movie, and, like, they were being assholes to her. Scene. Oh, my God. I do, too. With her feet on the dash. I'm like, that's me. But, she gets fired off her movie set and gets a bad reputation, so no one wants to work with her. So she decides to go out to California with Hillary for the remainder of the pregnancy to like take care of her and be there for her when she gives birth. And so Hillary still owns her dad's like mansion and everything. I'm guessing her husband just like moved out, but she still has that huge estate. And I think later on, I think she goes back to work again and doing law. But so Cece's taking her to her doctor's appointments and ends up dating the gynecologist, who's like so not her type. He's like the sweetest man, but he's like got gray hair and like, you know, just like, honestly, how much older do you think he was than her?
I would say about 15 years.
Okay.
10 or 15 years.
Yeah, and so she gets like this, she's so ADHD. First of all, can we just talk about how Cece is like the picture of ADHD? Because she hyperfixates on things, and then she's like, oh, I don't care anymore, you know? And so, like, she hyperfixates on this man, and all of a sudden she's like, I'm going to be a doctor's wife. She, like, gets a whole new wardrobe of, like, suits and, like, gets this really, little, like,
pillbox hats.
Yeah, and, like, a posh, like, short pixie cut, and it's, like, not her style at all. And he ends up, like, they get engaged really fast, too. But, of course, like, he's obsessed with her. He's like, oh my God, you're Cece Bloom. Like, I've been to all your shows. Like, he's enthralled by her. She's a swizzle stick for him.
Yeah.
But he's just a hyperfixation for her. And so then, like, getting close to the end of Hillary's pregnancy, Cece gets some kind of offer back in New York, and she's like, I gotta go. And Hillary's like, you can't just leave the doctor.
Let's talk about that for a minute,
Yeah,
Lou.
let's unpack that, because there's a lot there.
How do you feel about the fact... I'm conflicted about the fact that she is like, I gotta go. This might be it. I might be able to get back. Like, how do you think she should have handled it? Or do you agree with how she handled it?
I think it's a twofold situation. I do think she realized she's not in love with this man and doesn't want to marry him. And so a lot of it is escaping that, because she asks Hillary to break up with him for her. Hillary's like, he's my doctor. Like, I'm not going to do that. But I think it is also, she wants to go and try to get back in the industry and clear her name. But I think it's a combination of escaping and being...
Oh.
I don't know if I want to say she's being selfish, because I understand she wants to salvage her career, but like she should have never gotten engaged to that man to begin with.
No, but I like the fact that you use the word escaping, because that is the truth. Because I was like, why couldn't she just stay with him and go back?
Because she wasn't in love with him.
But she didn't love him. You're right.
Yeah. And that wasn't who she is. Like, I think that's why they have her change her entire wardrobe and change her hair, and like, because it's not her. And she just got excited with the idea of this concept. And maybe in her mind, she's like, oh, this is so perfect, because like, I'll live here and like, we'll help Hillary raise the baby together. And, like, she just was forcing this scenario that maybe sounded nice on paper, but wasn't what was going to make her happy. But also, I'm like, you would think by the time, because at that point, she's probably supposed to be 40 at that point, like her actual age.
Yeah, 35 or 40, yeah.
Wouldn't you know yourself enough by then? I don't know. I feel like I'm learning so much about myself at 26 that I feel like at that age, and maybe she's just immature, but I feel like by that point, I'd be like, I like the idea of this, but this isn't what I actually want.
I think, you know what, Lou, unfortunately, and I think you and I both know this, I think the self-awareness aspect of people is probably about 60-40. There's about, I would say there's over half of people who are really in tune with, I do this kind of stuff all the time, and I really need to work on this and that. And then about 40% of people are like, just
this time will be different.
Yeah, walking around like that in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, like making choices that they made when they were in their 20s and 30s that didn't serve them, and doing the same things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Now, I like the fact that you said that about the haircut doesn't fit her, the clothes are wrong. She's trying to actively deny who she is. Mm-hmm. And, we end up with the fact that, Hillary goes into labor, and she has to see the doctor again, and he's already moved on. So they give you that closure.
He's fine. But Hillary, low-key, does have to be the one to break the news to him.
And I don't think that's ever okay.
No, I think that definitely there are times in the friendship where Hillary gives more than Cece, but I think Cece provides a value to Hillary that makes it worth it to her. She provides that excitement and adventure and encouragement value to her. That
she does.
Like it does balance a little bit.
Like when she tells her that she's pregnant, she's like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Like that attitude of, no, we're not going to crawl under the covers. We're going to do this.
Or like, I hate the way it happened, but the fact that she loved her enough to call her out and be like, what are you doing being a housewife? That's not you. Like, you're way too talented.
Yeah. You got to have people in your life that hold you accountable to a higher standard. And I do think that they both give each other something.
Because she does, and Hillary gets more comfortable with calling out Cece the longer they know each other. But Cece gets to a point where she gets more comfortable calling out, or no, Hillary gets more comfortable calling out Cece when she's being egotistical. She's like, you're being a brat. Like,
yeah,
stop.
Absolutely. So she has the baby, and then they fast forward, and then what happens? Little, what's her name?
I think her middle name is Cecilia.
Cecilia.
Mm-hmm. But her first name is something else. Let me see.
Victoria.
Yeah. Which I love that she named her middle name after Cece. It makes me so happy. But so they fast forward, and Victoria's like 6.
Yeah, about 5 or 6.
And that's when we kind of jump to present day, where we started the movie, where Cece's prepping for a concert. She's clearly like back in good graces with her career, where like she's probably mostly just a recording artist at this point. But she had to leave her concert rehearsal in a rush because there was some emergency. Well, it turns out the emergency was Hillary's health. And does she have cancer? I don't remember.
No, she has a heart issue. I'm going to butcher it, but she's got a infection in her heart, and it's degenerative and it's non-curable.
Yeah, there's a scene that's so heartbreaking where Hillary's goes
that
to the
kills
library.
Me. Oh, come on.
Because didn't have the internet back then. She has to go to the library and get every book on this disease, and everything she's reading is like, there's no hope, essentially.
And she's got this little girl.
And no husband. She has gone back to law. So I think when she passes out, there's a few different times where she passes out. But one of them, she's at work, like in the courthouse, and like passes out on the stairs. I think that might have been the first incident.
And that's how she ends up getting diagnosed. Mm-hmm.
So then Cece's like, I'm here now. And Hillary, she has like a battle with the illness, and then finally gets to a point where she's like, look, I'm going to die. I want to be in my happy place. I don't want to be in this hospital. So they end up going to Hillary's childhood beach house. And that's where they were when they conceived the baby, was the family beach house. So it's like they've been to this house. I think her and Cece had gone to at some point together. So they go and decide they want one more summer at the beach house. And Bette, like at first kind of bumps up against the idea of being the caretaker. I don't think not because she doesn't love Hillary, but I think it's like too much for her.
Because she's never been so selfless.
Yeah. And I think it's that, and I think it's just too hard. She runs away. I think that's also why the whole thing with the doctor happens, is to show us like she has this history of running when things get too hard or too real. And so she kind of tries to get out of being this caretaker, and Hillary's like, please do this for me. So they go to the beach house. It's Bette, or Cece, Hillary, and Victoria. And
we get some really good golden nuggets of comedy in these 20 minutes between Bette
Sorry, go ahead.
between Cece and Victoria. Yes. Man alive, they do not enjoy each other at first.
Yeah, because they're like too similar, almost.
Oh yeah, vying for Hillary's attention, and they're brats.
Yeah, and I like that it does a good job of showing that even though they're like, she's basically in hospice. She's on her deathbed, essentially. But, like, there's still nuggets of funny, comedic things. It's like the laughter with the pain. Like, we've had family members be in hospice. And, like, there are moments where funny things happen. And, you know, it's not all. And so I like that they include that kind of stuff in this part of the movie.
I like that. I also like, let's talk about a few of our favorite things from those scenarios. I love the fact that Cece won't let Hillary be just a hermit. Mm-hmm. You know, she's Hillary gets down in her funk, gets funky in her funk, and Cece's like, well, you're not dead yet. Stop living like you are.
Go play with your daughter while you still can. Mm-hmm. And one of the scenes that gets me really hard is when Victoria's like, look, Mom, we have the same hands. And then it cuts to later that night, and she's like, Hillary's like frantically rummaging through pictures, and I loved Cece so much in this scene because she's like, baby, what's wrong? Like, what? And she's like, I can't find a picture of my mom's hands. I need to see my mom's hands. And I love Cece that she's like, okay, we're going to find it. Like, she just gets in there with her and is rifling with her, and they find it. Cece's the one that finds it. And I don't know. I don't know what it is about that. It warms my heart so much. And it just feels so real. Like, something about that is like so real life.
Yeah, that it wasn't just I need to see my mom. I want to see our hands. She said that, like, it's so specific that it seems really genuine. And
I think I love that, like, Cece cares so much that she's like, we're going to find it. Like, she's not like, well, why do you need to see a picture of your mom?
Right.
She's just like, we're going to find it. Don't worry.
Well, because Hillary says, I'm scared, and looks at her like, and what she means is, I'm scared to die. But Cece, in a very knowing way, is like, don't be scared. We're going to find the picture. Just like, we're not even going to talk about it. We're going to focus on this right now, and we're going to solve this. This problem is solvable. Finding the picture is solvable. So let's focus on what we can control.
Yeah, I just love that part so much.
I'm trying to remember, because they end up going back to the beach when she passes away, but it is in this one. You get the line when she's like, oh, she's cheating at cards, and she's like, I don't cheat, and she's like, oh, I know everything about you, and my memory is long. And she walks away, and Hillary goes, I'm counting on it.
I know.
And it's like, oh God, to even imagine having to leave your little girl when she doesn't have a support. She doesn't have her dad. She doesn't have support. She's got Aunt Vista, which is who raised Hillary, but that's, an old woman now. And just for her to be like, to give you that little glimpse of, her plan all along. Once she found out she was sick, was that the two of them would love each other and be together. Yeah. So
I love that line. My memory is, that's just, it's so real.
Yeah.
I know everything about you. And my memory is very
long. We said, Aunt Lisa and I have said that ever since you girls were born. We're like, I love the fact that if something were to happen to me, there's not a single question she couldn't answer for you about me. There's not a single one that if you went to her and said, what did mom, because there's times, even when my mom lived so much longer than Lisa's mom, so much longer, but there's still things that come up that I'm like, I wonder, what did mom, and I can't imagine how many questions Aunt Lisa and Aunt Lori didn't have answered because their mom died at such a young age. And it's such a comfort to me to know that you would have all the answers.
I know. I'm like, it's so rare to have like a spare mom, not only like a second mom, but a second mom who knows everything about my mom.
Yeah. It's real. Yeah. That part always gets me, and that's exactly why. So they kind of go over the fact that the actual death, and we fast forward to the funeral. So what do we see there, Lou?
So the funeral happens, and Cece's by Victoria's side the whole time, and then they go back to the house, and it just like kills me. But they find out that, like Mom was saying, Hillary set it up in the will for Cece to be the guardian. But Cece's like, her and Victoria's relationship has gotten so great since the summer and just the hospice and taking care of the mom and everything. And so Cece's really fair to Victoria. I love that she leaves it up to her. Too. That she's like, your mom wanted you to come live with me, but you don't have to. And everybody wants you. Like Aunt, what's her name, wants you.
Vesta.
Vesta wants you. Like all the family, extended family want her. And she decides to go and live with Cece. She's like, can I bring my cat? And she's like, you can bring any old thing you want. And so the movie ends with her at Cece's concert, and she sings, transitioning from the hospice to the funeral is when Beneath My Wings, from the beach to the funeral is when Beneath My Wings, which you all know that song. But then, the end of the movie is her.
I can't talk about it. I can't.
It's her singing that audition song, The Glory of Love, but it's like a slowed down version. And first of all, I watched it with Greg. It was his first time watching it. We're both sobbing our eyes out. And I also, this last time around, I guess because I was analyzing it for the show, I realized the point, which, I mean, there's obviously the main point is the friendship, but I realized from the deeper meaning, at least my interpretation is like, first of all, Hillary and Cece were always soulmates. Like, the men, they came and they went throughout their lives, but they were each other's soulmates. And also, they both wanted to be mothers, as they discussed in that fight, in the middle of the movie. But Hillary's the one that had Victoria, but they were mothers together to her. And then it was like, the story was always Hillary and Cece. And then even as Hillary moved on, the story continues because it's about Cece and Victoria, and that way that her and Hillary were soulmates, and they both wanted to be mothers, and they kind of both were a mother to this little girl, but also this little girl is the continuation of the story. And it's like, it's almost like Victoria is a symbol of their relationship and their love and their connection, and she is the through line, and she's the invisible string that ties it all together. I can't.
The last line of the movie.
I know, but it cuts to them when they're little girls.
It's these pictures of them from the first day they met, and they're in a photo booth, and they flash them up on the screen, and it goes back to their little voices, and she says, "Be sure to keep in touch, Cece, okay?" And Cece comes back and says, "Well, sure, we're friends, aren't we?" And it's like, oh, that was brilliant writing. That was insanely brilliant writing and film producing and just all of it. I'm like, it was just so beautiful. And as much as it's difficult to watch, it's such a picture of the beauty of being with people in their last moments and their last days. And, after Grandma Starr passed away, I can remember my friend Melanie said, what a gift that you guys had, that you were there. And at the time I was so bitter. I was like, ugh, I was coming right off of it. And Elena had been there, and I, felt badly for that. And Melanie was like, you'll be able to look back on that and see it as a gift. And it is a gift. It is a gift.
No, I don't regret that ever. That experience is one of the most beautiful things I've ever had the privilege of experiencing in my life, and it's taught me so much, and I am who I am because of it, and there's nowhere else I would have wanted to be. Like, that changed me for the better, I think. I mean, there was obviously heartbreak that went with it, but I think I know so much more about life now so young because of that.
I agree 100%. All right, Elena, I need for you to get ready to get really upset. Are you ready? Because I don't think you're
I'm
upset enough.
already sobbing, so.
You're not upset enough. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Rotten Tomatoes, my friends. Audience score, 88%.
Of course.
Critics, 43.
Wow. Critics need to get over themselves. The people want what the people want.
The people want what the people want. And listen to this trash. I'm sorry. It makes me super angry. Barbara Hershey is wasted in a boring role.
Huh?
Anything for a laugh, anything for a tear, and nothing much authentic.
I don't agree with that.
Beaches is bloodless, and Gary Marshall's direction, which might have given it style, is completely incompetent and entirely without personality.
How can you say this movie has no personality? It has so much personality.
Explain this one to me. For all of its insistence on the open, even gushing expression of feeling, Beaches finally, and I think they meant finale, seems a little bit sneaky.
I don't agree with that.
I don't understand that. The film's oily overdefinition of various class and cultural categories is strident enough to betray a condescending attitude toward the audience.
No.
No.
I don't agree with any of that.
I mean, there's so many really good ones, but the bad ones are so visceral that you know what? This is one of those times where I go, boy, howdy, y'all are jealous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that so far that is the largest separation between critics and audience that we've seen.
Probably, yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense to me. The only thing I can think of is that it's almost academic in the way that the critics are looking at it. Like we kind of say, like those who can't teach, those who do. So it's almost like these movie critics who aren't capable of writing or directing such a brilliant movie came at it with such an attitude problem that they couldn't see it for what it really was.
Yeah.
Because
I think sometimes yeah, this movie is sappy. Like, we can't deny that.
Right.
But I think sometimes sappy is good. Sometimes it's good. And if you have a problem with that, then you're looking at it too hard.
Yeah. And the budget was only $20 million. Overall, it's brought in almost $160 million.
Nice.
So it's, at some point they have to get over themselves. Do you not, if you're a movie critic, shouldn't you be in tune with what the people want? Mm-hmm. So how can you explain the difference between that except for that they were delusional? Mm-hmm. It just seems...
and I'm curious how many of them, that not to make it a battle of the sexes thing, but I'm wondering how many of those critics were men, because sometimes it's just this wasn't for you. You're not the target audience.
Yeah. So, of the ones that I just said, 2 were women and the rest were men. So, yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. It did not win any awards.
I cannot believe that.
I know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's sappy, but it's so good. It's so good.
Well, I should say it didn't win any Oscars or Golden Globes. It was nominated.
I think at least the soundtrack should have won
for Best Direction. And they do say, there's critics out there who say, one of the main ones is, not all good soundtracks make good movies. So the critics were very complimentary of the soundtrack, but not of the actual
Midler's,
movie.
Has to be one of the best singers of our time.
Yeah. And I mean, never mind the fact that she just has a presence, that self-confidence that comes across where you want to watch her because she seems like she's truly enjoying herself. But it did win for, but not for an Oscar or a Golden Globe. It won for Wind Beneath My Wings, but that was for an online film and television association. So, anyway, where would you put it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, personally, when I think about movies in my life that have been big, impactful, just life-changing movies, this is definitely up there with Steel Magnolias and Father of the Bride, all of my big movies. So I mean, I would have to give it an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think that anything that leaves that kind of an impression on you, even after seeing it only one time, like I can remember in college, since, you're in college, you can't afford to go again and again and again, that I knew that this was going to be one of those movies that was going to be a core movie for me for my whole life, even after seeing it once, which is the way I felt about Terms of Endearment and the way I felt about Steel Magnolias. And, maybe the critics are running from the fact that this is a part of real life. Mm-hmm. And another thing is sort of like you and I have talked about this on other episodes of G&I, where if you haven't had a real life experience with this, either and having somebody that you love go through hospice and dying in front of your eyes, or you haven't had a lifelong friend, I could see where you would think that this is fiction, like unrealistic fiction.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and part of me, as like such an empath, I'm like, how could that be? But no, I've had experiences with people who I know have not had big loss in their life that they don't understand. Not always, but some people don't understand what it's like. And it's just a gap in experience, of life experience. And so, yeah, to your point, I could totally see that maybe some of these harsh reviews are from people who don't get it on a personal level.
Something that just popped into my head too is a truism that Aunt Lisa says to us all the time, which is if you want good friends, you have to be a good friend. Mm-hmm. And so people who are out there who are thinking these kind of friendships are not realistic, I would take a moment and ask yourselves, do you pour into other people the way that you wish that other people would pour into you? Mm-hmm. And because to your point, they both gave each other gifts of themselves and, built each other up in ways that were unexpected. And I have found in my life that putting forth the first effort can be scary, but it can be so worth it.
Mm-hmm. And it's the way I kind of look at it is like, it's a way to see who your real friends are, instead of saying like, well, I'm not going to put the effort in until they do. If you start a friendship or you're in an existing friendship and you don't know if it's balanced, show up and be the friend that you want to have, and then see how they respond. Because maybe your action was the thing they were missing to be a great friend, And so it's a good way to test the water. Maybe they're waiting on you. And so show up and be who you want in your life to others. See who meets you there, and those are the people you need to gift with your time.
Well, Eileen, I couldn't have said it better. I don't think I could say it that well. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap up our episode on beaches.
Oh, I can't believe we tackled it. I mean, it's been looming over us since we started.
It has, because, contrary to critics' belief, it is a very worthy 2 hours of your life. And I think that, we've been saying that a lot on G&I, is that, there's so few things out there that we see now that we take a risk and we're like, I'm going to watch this. And we're like, I just wasted 2 hours of my life. And this was the exact opposite for us. So
and I will say too, like, my husband is a big film guy. He loves indie stuff. He loves like the big blockbuster stuff. He's very analytical with it. And he loved this movie, and it like haunted him for days. And so like he reviewed it. I think he gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd. Like, he loved this movie. So even if you're thinking like, it's not up my alley, give it a try, because I think it has something for everyone.
I would agree, because your dad loves it too. Mm-hmm. Oh, Laney, Elena, Eileen, I love you so much. We're going to discuss offline what we will do for our next one. And listen, we're going to put it this way. We'll see you soon.
When we see you.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
We're not going to promise things we can't deliver.
But we're not going to make promises. And yeah, I can't believe, Lou, Did you see the little pumpkins I got from the Dollar Tree? Did you watch my Marco Polo? Oh my gosh, so
I meant to
cute.
say they look so cute.
So all of this stuff is out for fall, you guys. So we're wishing you a happy transition from summer into fall, but we're going to continue with our summer hits.
Yes. May the pumpkin spice be with you.
Yeah.
And also with you.
And also with you. All right, Pumpkin, I love you.
All right, love you.
All right, we love you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Girls' Night.